The wedding bill was nearly $20,000. And it wasn't mine. I found the statement tucked beneath a pile of junk mail. One look at the charges, a designer dress boutique, luxury catering, venue deposits, and my chest tightened. I called my daughter. "Oh, Mom, don't freak out. I used your card, but it's for my big day. You want me to be happy, right?" I was stunned, not just by the betrayal, but by how casually she expected me to foot the bill. No apology, no shame. And she wasn't the only one. My son had been living in my guest room rent-free for over a year, draining my patience and my pantry. That night, sitting alone in my kitchen, I realized, somewhere along the way, my children stopped seeing me as their mother. They saw me as a wallet. So I made a choice, not to fight, but to reclaim. And by the time they realized what I'd done, it was already too late. Emma had called one afternoon with that bright, chirpy voice she used when she wanted something. "Mom, we've decided on the venue. It's the Chandler estate. You'll love it. It's only $17,000 for the day, and that's a steal." I nearly dropped the phone. $17,000? For one day. I cleared my throat. "That's quite a lot, Emma." She laughed like I'd made a joke. "Oh, come on. You always said a wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime moment. Besides, you said you were saving for something special. What could be more special than your daughter's big day?" Kyle chimed in from the kitchen, helping himself to the last piece of my lemon pie without asking. "She's got the money. What else is she gonna spend it on? She's not exactly going on cruises." I looked at him. A 35-year-old man, living rent-free, job-hopping, leaving laundry wherever it landed. And now he was telling me how to spend the retirement I had spent decades building? That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through my quiet house, every photo frame a memory I had preserved, every corner scrubbed and polished with care. I thought of all the times I had put them first, bought them shoes while mine had holes, stayed up sewing costumes, sat through school plays, heartbreaks, graduations. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night. And now, I was being treated like a wallet with gray hair. The next morning, Emma sent a link to a custom cake designer. The message read, "Deposit due next week. Can you cover it?" Dad would've. That one stung. Their father, Henry, had been my partner in every sense. We had built this life together from scratch. He would have moved heaven and earth for our kids, but he would have never let them forget who their mother was. I realized something right then. I hadn't lost their respect overnight. I'd given it away, bit by bit, in every yes when I should have said no, in every silent swallow of hurt when they dismissed me, every dollar handed over without question. And maybe it was time to take it back. Not with yelling, not with tears, but with a plan. Because if they had forgotten who I was, then I'd remind them. The kind way at first. But if kindness failed, well, I had other methods. And just like that, I snapped. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a dramatic movie scene with dishes flying or doors slamming. No, it was quieter than that. Quieter, but heavier. I stood in the doorway of the kitchen, watching Kyle's crumbs scatter across the counter like I didn't spend each morning wiping them away. He had the nerve to leave the empty box of wings on top of the trash can, not even pushing it in. The microwave beeped. He took his plate, plopped on the couch, and turned on some action movie loud enough to rattle the windows. Not a glance in my direction. Not even a "Thanks, Mom." Upstairs, Emma's voice echoed through the phone. She was gushing to someone about monogrammed napkins. Monogrammed napkins. As if they were necessities. As if my money was a bottomless well meant to feed her fantasy. "You have the money, Mom. You weren't using it anyway." The audacity. That night, I didn't sleep. Again. But not from stress or sadness. This time, it was something sharper. something focused. I started making lists, quietly, methodically. One was titled, "What I Pay For." Another, "What I Get in Return." The third was the most important, "How to Fix This." The next morning, I made a pot of coffee and drank it alone on the porch. Carl didn't come downstairs until noon, groggy and yawning like he'd run a marathon in his dreams. I heard him rummaging in the fridge. Then came the familiar question, "Hey, what's for lunch?" I smiled. Not bitterly, not angrily, just calmly, like someone who had finally made a decision. "I'm not sure," I said without turning around. "But I won't be here." He blinked. "What do you mean?" "I booked a cabin up north. I'll be gone for a week, maybe more." His face twisted, confused. "What about the groceries? The dog? The wedding stuff?" I canceled the grocery delivery. "The dog's going to a friend's. As for the wedding," I looked him square in the eye, "that's Emma's responsibility, not mine." He opened his mouth to argue, but I was already up the stairs. By evening, I had packed my suitcase. When Emma came by to talk about cake flavors, I told her the same thing. I wouldn't be funding the wedding. She laughed at first, until she realized I wasn't joking. "You can't just back out, Mom," she said, arms folded. I met her gaze. "I never signed a contract. I never promised anything. You just assumed I'd pay because I always have." Her face reddened. "Dad would be ashamed of you." That was the final straw. "No," I said, my voice steady. "He'd be ashamed of what you two have become." I walked out, leaving her standing there with her mouth half open, like the words had stopped mid-sentence. It was the first time in years I chose myself, and it felt incredible. The real estate agent's name was Monica. Young, bright, and hungry in the way only someone new to the business can be. I liked her instantly. "I'm looking to sell quickly," I said, quietly. "I don't want a sign in the yard, and I don't want my kids to know." Monica blinked but didn't question it. "Understood," she said. "Let me get to work." While she arranged private showings, I boxed up memories. Not the painful ones, the photo albums, the birthday cards from when the kids were still sweet and small, the book my late husband gave me for our 25th anniversary. Those came with me. Everything else, sold, donated, or tossed. I wasn't just leaving the house. I was shedding a skin that no longer fit. Meanwhile, Emma texted twice, both about the wedding. She needed me to confirm the florist. Then she wanted to know if I could just Venmo $3,000 for a last-minute gown upgrade. I didn't reply. Kyle left sticky notes on the fridge, out of toothpaste. "We're low on laundry pods. Is there more cereal?" I threw them away without a word. Rebecca, my lawyer, helped finalize the living trust. Every cent, every asset, every legal right now sat in that trust with specific conditions. If either of my children wanted access after I passed, they'd have to fulfill two requirements. Prove a full year of self-sufficiency, employment, housing, no debts in my name. Complete 200 hours of verified community service. Rebecca raised an eyebrow when I told her that. "They need to learn gratitude," I said. She smiled. "You're a force, Linda." Force. I'd never been called that before. I liked it. 3 weeks after that first call, Monica found a buyer, a retired couple moving from out of state. They loved my tidy little home, and they paid in cash. No haggling. Just a clean, quiet exit. Exactly what I needed. With the sale final, I booked a long-term rental cottage in Sedona. Small, sunlit, with a view of red rocks and enough quiet to hear your own breath. Peace, finally. Before leaving, I did one last thing. I left 2 envelopes on the kitchen table. one for Emma, one for Kyle. Each contained a letter, not angry, not emotional, just honest. I told them I loved them, that I always would. But I also told them love wasn't the same as sacrifice, and motherhood wasn't martyrdom. I reminded them of who I was before I became mom, a woman who loved books, who traveled with their father, who once dreamed of writing a novel. A woman who had lost herself in giving, and now chose to take herself back. I left a P.O. box address in case they ever wanted to reconnect. On my way out, I looked around the house one last time. The worn armchair, the humming fridge, the family portrait that no longer felt like family. Then I shut the door behind me, and didn't look back. Emma didn't call again. Instead, she sent a long, passive-aggressive email titled, "How could you?" It started with phrases like, "After everything I've done for you," and "You've always said family comes first." She ended it with a thinly veiled threat, "Don't expect to be a part of the wedding." I didn't respond. For the first time in decades, I didn't feel the need to explain myself. The guilt that used to grip my chest like a vice was gone. In its place was clarity. Kyle's reaction wasn't as theatrical. He showed up at my new place 3 days after being locked out, banging on the door like a spoiled child denied dessert. "You can't do this," he shouted. "I live there." "No," I said calmly through the screen door. "You squatted there, rent-free. That's over." He laughed, angry and confused, as if the concept of consequences had never crossed his mind. "I'm your son," he snapped. "Yes," I said, "and sons grow up. It's time." I handed him a small box, his things, neatly folded. "You have everything you need to start fresh. Now go." He left muttering under his breath, but he took the box. That was enough for me. Word must have spread, because 2 days later, I got a call from my sister. She hadn't spoken to me in years, too busy judging my every choice while coddling her own kids into entitled adulthood. "Linda," she began, her voice syrupy, "I heard there's some trouble with the kids. Maybe they're just going through a phase." I stopped her right there. "No," I said firmly. "I enabled them for years. That phase is over. I'm done playing the martyr." She huffed, sputtered something about family values, and hung up. Funny how people only defend family when they need something from you. Meanwhile, I was thriving. The volunteer center welcomed me with open arms. I spent mornings helping other seniors with tech, reading, or just sitting with them over coffee. My afternoons were mine. Gardening, reading, journaling. I even took a writing workshop downtown. One evening, while watching the sun dip behind the red cliffs, I opened my notebook and finally wrote the first line of the novel I'd been dreaming about since I was 27. I wasn't just surviving. I was blooming. Then the news came in. Emma had postponed the wedding. The venue pulled out after she missed several payments. Her fiancé's family, already skeptical, decided to step back financially. Suddenly, she had to face reality without her golden safety net. Kyle bounced between friends' couches for a while. Eventually, he had to get a job, an actual, full-time job. I heard through a mutual friend that he complained constantly, but showed up every day. The fire I lit wasn't spite. It wasn't vengeance. It was the fire of freedom, of finally saying, "Enough." For too long, I mistook silence for peace and sacrifice for love. Now, I had neither silence nor sacrifice. What I had was power. And they never saw it coming. Emma stood on my doorstep with her arms folded, the same defiant look she'd had since she was 15. But now, that defiance looked thinner, like a costume starting to fall apart. Her eyes were red, not from tears, but from fury and exhaustion. "You destroyed everything," she snapped. "David said I have no stability." He doesn't trust someone who can't even manage her own money. He said I was entitled. I let the silence hang there. She wasn't wrong, just finally hearing the truth from someone else's lips. I stepped aside. Would you like to sit? She hesitated, then entered like a storm cloud drifting into a sunlit room. I offered her tea. She declined. You didn't have to humiliate me, she said sharply. A private conversation, maybe. But cutting me off financially like I'm some stranger. I didn't humiliate you, I replied softly. Your actions did that. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences. She looked away. I never asked to be raised by a cold woman, she muttered. That stung, but I was past letting pain dictate my response. I was never cold, Emma. I was tired. Tired of giving and never being seen. I was generous, not weak, but you mistook my love for obligation. She didn't respond, just stared at a chipped piece of polish on her nail. I thought you'd always be there, she finally whispered. I know, I said. That was the problem. We sat in silence. For once, not the tense, resentful silence of years past, but something heavier. Real. She left without saying goodbye. I watched her go, a small part of me still aching, but a larger part breathing easy. The reckoning wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet. Final. Kyle never called. Not a message. Not a knock. I found out through a neighbor's daughter that he'd moved in with a cousin and was now working the night shift at a warehouse. I pictured him dragging boxes past midnight, cursing me under his breath. And yet, finally doing something for himself. He took the big TV when he left the house. I could have fought him on it, but I didn't. Let it be his reward for the years of freeloading. Because honestly, freedom, my freedom, was worth more than any screen. It was worth more than a spotless reputation. More than forced holidays. More than pretending to be the good mother while quietly falling apart inside. Some friends didn't understand. They said things like, but they're your children, or isn't forgiveness what family is about? To which I said, forgiveness without change is just permission to be hurt again. And I was done giving permission. I began redecorating my rental with thrifted treasures, each item chosen because I loved it, not because someone else needed space. I framed old photos of myself from before marriage, before motherhood, before I disappeared into other people's needs. One morning, while planting lavender by the window, a breeze came through and carried a simple thought into my chest. I did the hard thing, and I survived. The reckoning didn't break me. It rebuilt me. It's been 4 months. Not long in the grand scheme of life, but enough to feel the shift deep in my bones. Enough to say, with confidence, that I am no longer the woman I used to be. These days, I volunteer twice a week at the local library, helping children learn to read. Their little fingers tracing letters, their eyes lighting up when they understand a word. It brings me a joy no one can take from me. A different kind of motherhood. One built on encouragement, not expectation. On weekends, I host potlucks with my neighbors. Real people. No pretenses, no power plays. We sit under string lights in the backyard, pass around mismatched dishes, and talk about books, local news, funny stories. I no longer have to shrink myself to make room for someone else's ego. And last week, for the first time in more than a decade, I went dancing. Not at some elegant ballroom or forced formal event, but at a small community center where the DJ played 70s hits, and people danced because it felt good, not because it looked good. I laughed until my stomach hurt. I danced until my legs gave out. And I didn't check my phone once. People ask me if I miss my kids. I miss the children they used to be. I miss sticky fingers and bedtime stories. I miss the days when they looked at me like I was the moon. But I don't miss who I had to become just to keep their world spinning. I don't miss the silence I swallowed, the boundaries I blurred, or the nights I spent staring at the ceiling wondering when love had turned into duty. You see, sometimes justice isn't delivered in courtrooms or arguments. It doesn't always come in fiery showdowns or viral moments. Sometimes, justice is the quiet reclaiming of your own breath. It's waking up with peace instead of panic. It's saying no and not needing to explain why. It's dancing in a room full of strangers, knowing you finally belong to yourself. I haven't spoken to Emma since that day on my porch. I heard she's working retail now, saving up for her own place. Maybe one day she'll understand. Maybe not. That's hers to carry, not mine. As for Kyle, I suspect he's still telling anyone who'll listen that I lost my mind. Let him. I didn't lose my mind. I found my spine. And with it, I found a life I no longer need to escape from. I am not the woman I once was. I am better. I am me.